after losing some of their priority targets.
It sucks, man.
Newcastle still has time to pivot, so from finding out what's next for the Magpies, to discussing the latest exclusive from Sky Sports News, to revealing the latest development regarding the potential signing of James Trafford. We'll also break down the intriguing details behind a potential move for an exciting winger and defender. As per, join us as we'll break it all down and discuss the latest Newcastle United transfer news.
Let's go!
So starting off, Newcastle United are reportedly targeting a sensational summer swoop for Brighton's João Pedro, with Sky Sports News claiming the Brazilian has emerged as a key name on the club's radar. Sky Sports report that Newcastle are keen to bring Pedro to Tyneside in what would be one of the biggest deals of the window. The 22-year-old forward is believed to be open to a move, having fallen out of favour at Brighton following a training ground clash with defender Jan-Paul van Hecke. That bust-up saw him dropped from the matchday squad for the final 2 games of the campaign. Pedro has attracted plenty of interest from across Europe and within the Premier League, but it's understood he's determined to be a club's first-choice striker wherever he lands. That could present a complication for Newcastle, with Alexander Isak firmly established as Eddie Howe's leading number 9, and unlikely to leave this summer despite strong interest from the likes of Liverpool and Arsenal. Brighton reportedly value Pedro at around £70 million, but it's unlikely Newcastle would pay that figure. There is hope they could negotiate a lower fee, especially given the forward's recent disciplinary issues, and the club are also expected to lean on the close friendship between Pedro and Newcastle skipper Bruno Guimaraes to help seal the deal. In the Premier League this past season, Pedro made 27 appearances, scoring 10 goals and providing 6 assists in just under 2,000 minutes of football. He's also featured in the FA Cup, though failed to score in his 3 outings. A technically gifted, versatile forward with a sharp eye for goal, Pedro could add real quality and depth to our attacking line, but only if the price is right and his role in the squad is clearly defined. However, Sky Sports report that the player will only consider a move where he can be the first-choice striker, which could prove to be a stumbling block in any potential deal. Whether he's willing to play behind Isak or push for a wide role remains to be seen. But with multiple strikers turning down a move to St James's Park, due to the dominance of Alexander Isak in that number 9 role, Newcastle United must find a smart solution, especially with Callum Wilson potentially walking away on a free transfer, and young Will Osula still some way off being a reliable backup. One option that's now being floated is Everton's Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who's attracting attention as he approaches the final stages of his contract. According to TBR Football's Graham Bailey, speaking to Geordie Bootboys, Calvert-Lewin is a name Eddie Howe could seriously consider this summer, particularly if he becomes available on a free transfer. There are still decent options out there despite missing out on Liam Delap, Bailey said. The likes of Tammy Abraham are available. I think personally that Eddie Howe will be very intrigued by getting Dominic Calvert-Lewin on a free transfer. That is one to keep an eye on. Depending on what kind of deal he is offered, he could be a good option for Newcastle. If they were to get Calvert-Lewin on a free, it would mean they can spend more money on other positions. If Isak does stay, there is only a certain type of striker who will be willing to come in and be second choice. It does not look likely that Calvert-Lewin will sign a new contract at Everton. Calvert-Lewin's injury history and recent inconsistency might not make him the flashiest signing, but he could be a practical one, especially if the goal is to allocate big money towards strengthening priority areas like centre-back and right wing. Delap looked a smart pickup at £30 million, and the level of competition for him only proved how rare that kind of value is in today's striker market. Given that, bringing in Calvert-Lewin on a free, if the fitness checks out, could be a calculated move, even if it's not the most exciting on paper. But do you think signing him would be a good move, or is he just another Callum Wilson? Then, after missing out on long-term target Brian Mbeumo, Newcastle United are now believed to be pursuing a new marquee name, and it's a player with serious pedigree on the European stage. According to German journalist Christian Falk, the Magpies have turned their attention to Bayern Munich winger Kingsley Coman. The Frenchman is expected to leave the Bundesliga giants this summer, with Barcelona also monitoring his situation in case their moves for Luis Diaz or Marcus Rashford fall through. This comes off the back of a claim from Fabrizio Romano, who reported earlier this week that Coman is set to depart Bayern after falling out of favour. Coman's CV speaks for itself. He's a Champions League winner who scored the decisive goal in the 2020 final against PSG, his former club, and has won league titles in every season of his professional career across France, Italy, and Germany. That's the caliber of player we're talking about. German legend Oliver Kahn once described Coman as world-class, praising his dribbling ability, blistering pace, and threat in the final third. He's racked up over 330 appearances for Bayern alone, scoring 70 goals and assisting 69 more. Yes, there are concerns. He turns 29 later this month and would likely arrive on a hefty wage packet. That does raise questions over long-term value, especially with FFP still a factor to consider even after some financial restrictions were lifted. But if Eddie Howe sees Coman as the right fit to replace Mbeumo and add elite-level experience to the right-hand side, he deserves trust. Howe has increasingly taken the lead in transfer decisions following Paul Mitchell's departure, and while Coman might not be a signing for the next 5 years, he could be a game-changer for the immediate future. It would be a bold move, no doubt, but it would also be a statement that Newcastle United aren't here to make up the numbers next season. Then in defense, it looks like another one of our reported targets is slipping further from reach.
Oh shit, here we go again.
According to Fabrizio Romano, Paris Saint-Germain have opened talks with Bournemouth over the potential signing of Illia Zabarnyi. The 22-year-old centre-back is now the subject of serious interest from the French champions, with club-to-club negotiations already underway. This news comes just a week after the Eye's Mark Douglas reported that Newcastle held serious interest in the £50 million rated Ukrainian defender. Romano says Zabarnyi has long been on PSG's radar, particularly on the shortlist of club advisor Luis Campos, but it won't be an easy transfer for either them or Newcastle to pull off. Bournemouth are already bracing for the departure of other key players, including Milos Kerkez, who looks Liverpool-bound, and Dean Huijsen, who's on his way to Real Madrid. Losing Zabarnyi too would be a major blow for Andoni Iraola. There had been reports suggesting they weren't going to sell after losing several defenders, but ultimately, money talks. Despite the hefty price tag, there's a lot to like about Zabarnyi. He's young, already proven in the Premier League, and has all the tools to slot straight into Howe's backline. With Marc Guehi still proving difficult to land and a centre-back seen as a top priority, this might be a case where Newcastle need to act fast, or risk missing out again. Yes, £50 million is steep, but when it comes to shoring up the defence with a long-term solution who's already performing at this level, it could turn out to be a smart investment. If we're serious, now's the time to move. With that said, Newcastle United are reportedly one of the clubs monitoring AC Milan's Fikayo Tomori ahead of what could be a busy summer at St James's Park. TBR Football report that Tomori is now on Newcastle's radar, with the England international potentially seeking a move after being told he's unlikely to feature as a regular starter under incoming AC Milan boss Massimiliano Allegri. The former Chelsea man, who has been a key figure in Milan's backline over the past few seasons, could be tempted by a return to the Premier League, especially with Champions League football on offer at Newcastle. Tomori featured 22 times in Serie A last season, along with 7 appearances in the Champions League and 4 in the Coppa Italia, highlighting his experience at the top level. Journalist Matteo Bonetti once described the 26-year-old as unstoppable, and his style of play could complement what Howe wants from his defensive line. Centre-back is clearly a position Newcastle are prioritising this summer. Marc Guehi remains a top target, with reports suggesting Howe is personally pushing hard to land the Crystal Palace captain. However, Guehi's price tag and the level of competition, along with Palace's reluctance to sell, mean a deal is far from guaranteed, so Tomori could present an ideal fallback option. Still only 26, he's Premier League proven, Champions League tested, and likely to be available at a more accessible fee than Guehi. This could be the kind of smart, experienced signing that helps Newcastle take the next step. It's early days yet, but this is definitely one to keep an eye on. Then, Newcastle United remain determined to land James Trafford, their top goalkeeping target, as they aim to complete the deal they came agonizingly close to sealing 12 months ago. With some of the Magpies' key summer targets already opting to move elsewhere, Newcastle will be hoping that the same fate does not await their pursuit of Trafford. A formal bid is expected, but there are no guarantees that the 22-year-old will arrive from Burnley. According to the iPaper, Newcastle are describing a deal for Trafford as difficult. The report adds that Burnley value Trafford at more than £30 million, and the situation is further complicated by Newcastle already having 5 senior goalkeepers on the books. One of those is Nick Pope, who delivered a standout second half of the season. Pope is attracting interest from Leeds United and is regarded as the most saleable option among Newcastle's current crop of keepers. Another challenge for Newcastle is emerging interest from elsewhere. The I paper also reports that Manchester City could rival Newcastle for Trafford's signature, especially amid growing uncertainty surrounding Ederson's future at the Etihad. Trafford, a product of City's academy, never made a senior appearance before being sold to Burnley for £19 million in 2023. However, City inserted a buyback clause into the deal, allowing them to re-sign the keeper for a fee of more than £40 million, a factor that could disrupt Newcastle's plans. And finally, if you want to know the massive Newcastle transfer twist revealed by Fabrizio Romano, click the video link on the screen now.